Ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to be at ease for just a moment. We have a guest that'll be here in just a moment, so we'll get started in just a minute. Just continue your conversation. We'll be at ease for maybe 2 minutes. While we're waiting, I will tell you that our dinner is going to be on Tuesday, March the 14th at Agave Restaurant. If you'll RSVP for those members that are coming, for as many people as you're bringing, all of your additional guests are welcome. And I believe we have something tonight. Is that true, Donna?
Yes. Joint economic development and
That'll be at the Eventide Brewing Company tonight from 5:30 to 7:30, and it is joint committee. So for those of you that can come, please come join us. Why don't you let's
So I want to thank all the folks that came down last night. We did a subcommittee tour of the Tyler Perry Studios, which is the old Fort McPherson site there. If you've not seen this is one of the most incredible things, redevelopments you've ever seen. He did a lot of permanent sets there. They've got 400 acres, just a huge number of films coming in there. And it's literally 10 minutes by car from down here. If we get off session or something like that and get another opportunity to get down there, it is well worth the trip, not just to see the studio stuff, but also the historical stuff from Fort McPherson that, as part of the deal, they had to preserve and all that. The drill field, the commandant's house, and all those things. FDR, MacArthur, Patton, Colin Powell, they all lived or stayed there at one time or another. But if we get off session, I'd like to take another trip back. Terry was there last night with us, a relatively small group, but a very, very good tour.
Vice Chairman, bring us forward.
All right, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Appreciate everybody coming out. We have a House resolution that we need to hear today. It's House Resolution 389. Maybe a little bit different than most of the resolutions we've done, but I'm going to ask Representative Watson to come forward and to speak to the bill, please, to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of this committee. Bring before you today H.R. 389. This is a resolution to create the Rural Development Council. And let me just first say, when I was elected to the State House 5 years ago, when I was kicking off my campaign, one of the things I told my constituents and my supporters was that I just wanted to be a voice for rural Georgia. I didn't have a big plan in my back pocket to change government, but I just wanted to be a voice for rural Georgia and do what's right for my district and the state of Georgia. And this legislation does that. It is something small that will create a ripple effect across the state of Georgia. The Speaker has honored me by allowing me to carry this legislation on his behalf. This will be something that will be a voice for rural Georgia. It will set out to find answers to the problems of rural Georgia. Problems such as loss of population, a deficiency in health care, poor infrastructure, lack of economic growth, lack of employment, and diminished educational opportunities. So how do we find answers to those problems? What will this council do? First, we'll start by forming the council. We will meet with stakeholders in those areas across the state. We will meet with community leaders across the state. We will write down those problems. We'll put them on paper. Second, we'll discuss what tools do we have as a state of Georgia to help rural Georgia. Are we using those tools? If we are they working? The third thing is this council, we've got a lot of different problems and a lot of different groups. A lot of people are pulling in different directions, going in different ways. This council will serve as the hub or the ring that brings everybody together at the table to talk about these problems and find answers for these problems. In my opinion, a lot of the problems are related. You get the health care, you get the economic development, you get the infrastructure. You get the infrastructure, you get the economic development, you get the health care. They all go hand in hand, they all work together. This body voted in 2015 on HB 170. That was one of those things that started that infrastructure, solving that problem, and we need to continue to build on that. Again, I'm just truly honored to be carrying this on behalf of our speaker. You know, what's amazing about our speaker is he knows the problems across the state of Georgia. He lives and works in rural Georgia and metro Atlanta. He knows the problems of the rural areas, the urban areas. He's traveled our state. He's been in almost all of our districts, and he's seen the problems that we're dealing with, and I just commend him and thank him for what he's done, bringing this forward, and I know it's going to have a great impact on our state, and more especially a great impact on rural Georgia, and I just hope this committee will support it, and I look forward to working with everybody on it. And I know the speaker is here, and I know he's got some comments that he would like to make as well, but I appreciate the committee letting me have this opportunity, and I'll turn it over to the speaker.
Thank you. We're going to hold off all questions until after the speaker addresses the resolution, and we'll just kind of go from there. Mr. Speaker, the podium is yours.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I want to thank you all for the opportunity to speak to you today about House Resolution 389, which creates the House Rural Development Council. I come before you today as a resident, as a representative and supporter of rural Georgia. I am honored to be the second signer of many signers on this resolution. You all know the statistics. Georgia is a growing and prosperous state. Since I was honored by the House to be elected Speaker in 2010, unemployment in our state has been cut in half. Our state budget is growing, which allows us to make strategic investments as our economy recovers. Along the way, we have been able to reform and modernize our transportation funding structure with House Bill 170 in 2015. We have also managed, under the leadership of Governor Deal, to replenish our once depleted rainy day reserve fund, all the while maintaining our AAA bond rating. All of this is good news, and it demonstrates our collective resolve in encouraging economic growth and expanding opportunity in Georgia. While the picture as a whole is positive, in some areas, particularly in rural areas of our state, the recovery has not been as robust as we would like. Anecdotally, I can see this when I travel to areas where town storefronts still have plywood covering the windows, where once thriving rural communities are empty. There's data that backs up this observation. In September of last year, Georgia State University's Center for State and Local Finance released a report on job growth in the last decade. It found that as our economy has recovered and jobs have returned, our urban areas have seen the most benefit, while our rural communities have seen much less impact. One researcher noted in this report that rural parts of the country are facing many hardships. The recovery isn't as fast as some would like in the rural areas, but we can see it coming. That picture is not quite as clear for our rural communities. With the committee's permission, I will enter that report in its entirety into the record with my remarks today. When I spoke at the Georgia Chamber's Eggs and Issues breakfast at the beginning of the session, I said that we were going to make hay while the sun was shining. We must take advantage of this time of opportunity to bolster our rural communities in Georgia. That is why I am so pleased and honored to join with Rural Caucus Chair Representative Sam Watson, as well as with Chairman Terry England and Chairman Jay Powell, to ask this House to create a Rural Development Council. I want to be very clear, this is not a study committee. This is going to be an ongoing project over the next 2 years at least, and it's going to take a lot of work. As provided in this resolution, this council will travel into rural communities, hear testimony, meet with Georgians, and attempt to understand the unique challenges facing rural Georgia, whether in the areas of education, health care, infrastructure, or tax policy. I want this council to look at the big picture and recommend legislative actions that can empower our rural areas. I want them to seek out creative solutions. In the community that I call home, or at least my birthplace, we lost a hospital in Ellijay just last spring, one of several rural hospitals to close in Georgia in recent years. However, this Friday afternoon, I'm going back home to reopen a new emergency room facility as part of a new micro hospital with fewer than 10 patient beds in that town. This is the kind of creative approach to addressing issues in rural Georgia that I want this council to explore. Let me be clear on another point. This council is not intended to be a public works program. I am not interested in government creating jobs. Rather, I want to create an environment in which private enterprise can create jobs in rural Georgia. I expect and encourage the council to call on and collaborate with existing efforts and form strategic partnerships to address this issue as we move forward. Among potential partners already engaged in the process are the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, the Carl Vinson Institute of Government at the University of Georgia, and the Department of Community Affairs. Earlier this year, the Georgia Chamber announced plans to open its first ever regional office in Tifton. This office will be a ready resource for businesses and communities in the southern portion of our state. In April, the Carl Vinson Institute at the University of Georgia will release the 2017 Economic Development Handbook for Georgia's rural communities. This guide was written in partnership with our Department of Community Affairs and our Georgia Rural Development Council. I have asked Dr. Laura Meadows, who directs the Vinson Institute, to make this guidebook available to the House Rural Development Council when it is published. I am sure that she and Commissioner Knowles of the Department of Community Affairs and their respective teams will be tremendous resources for this council. This General Assembly, working in partnership with Governor Deal, has a proud economic record. We will continue to support the growth and prosperity of our urban centers with initiatives like our Georgia Commission on Transit Governance and Funding. However, we owe it to our rural residents to keep their best interest at heart as well. Georgia's story is a remarkable success story. That success is due in no small part to our diversity. Our diversity can be seen in the faces of our people and the places they call home. From the bright lights of our city centers to the smallest country crossroads, our diversity is a strength. We will harness that strength to continue to move our state forward. Your support and favorable consideration of House Resolution 389 will help us keep all of Georgia, urban, suburban, and rural, a great place to live, to work, and to raise a family. I thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be happy to yield for questions.
Does anyone have any questions for the speaker? I don't see any. I would like to say that as a rural Georgian, how much I appreciate yours and Representative Watson's and the other members or the other that sponsored this bill. We see it every day in rural Georgia, and I think this is a great first step, and I want to commend y'all and thank y'all for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
At this time, I'm going to call on Chairman Stevens for a motion.
as chairman of the Economic Development Committee, I'm honored to make the motion to do pass.
We have a motion to do pass. We have a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
May I be excused, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I think you can probably go. You have your resolution, Mr. Speaker. Thank y'all very much. Is there anything else that anyone wants to bring before the committee? Hold on just a minute.
George tomorrow, Mass, George, early at 9:30. If you'd like to go, please get hold of me. Thank you.
Good. Seeing nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have a great day.